In this video, you will learn how to multiply two or more fractions. Now, when you multiply with fractions, the rules are as follows. So first, you want to combine the numerators by multiplying them, combine the denominators by multiplying them, and then reduce if possible. So basically, you're multiplying the tops of the fractions together, and then multiplying the bottoms together, and then reduce as necessary. In math notation, if we use the letters A, B, C, and D, we would have our property expressed right here. Or if you had A over B times C over D, you can multiply A times C, put it on the top, then multiply B times D and put it on the bottom. So let's take a look with many different examples. Here we're going to begin with multiplying a fraction with a whole number. So for example, if you were told to find 1/4 of 8, so what number is 1/4 of the number 8? So first off, you can actually translate this English into math notation and then solve, where you can write 1/4 as 1 over 4. The word of you can think of as multiply. So typically in math, if you see the word of means multiply, and then multiply by 8. So we're taking 1/4 and then times that by 8. Now one thing here is that the 8 is not written as a fraction. So what we can do is we can actually create a fraction out of this. Because remember, anything divided by 1 would equal what we started with. So if we take 8, we can put it over 1, 8 divided by 1, and it doesn't change anything because 8 divided by 1 is still 8. So any whole number we could express as a fraction by putting it over 1. Now from here we can use our property where we multiply the tops together. 1 times 8 would be 8. Then multiply the bottoms together. 4 times 1 would give us 4. So now we have 8 divided by 4, which would equal 2. So we've simplified and our answer is 2. Here is another example where we are told to find 1/6 of 12. So again, we can translate this in a math notation where 1/6 would be 1 over 6. Of would mean multiply, and then 12 would just be the number 12. And then again, we can express this whole number as a fraction by putting it over 1. So what we have is 1 over 6 times 12 over 1. And now we can multiply the tops together. 1 times 12 is 12. The bottoms, we'd have 6 times 1 to get 6. And now we have 12 divided by 6, which would equal 2. So our simplified answer here would also equal 2. Now on the following slide, we have two fractions where in the other slide we had a fraction and a whole number. Now we have two fractions. And the first example on this slide, we need to multiply, but there's no need to reduce. So for example, if we had 1/2 of 3/4, or 1/2 times 3/4, we can multiply the 1 times 3 in the top, and then 2 times 4 on the bottom. That would give you 3 over 8. And 3 over 8 is already simplified, so there's no need to reduce. Now in the following examples, we will need to reduce. So now we have 2/3 times 3/4. So again, when you multiply fractions, you can multiply the tops together. So we have 2 times 3 on the top, and then on the bottom, we would have the 3 times 4. So what we have is 6 over 12. Now remember, when you simplify fractions, what we can do is we can divide the top and the bottom by ideally the greatest common factor. If not, we'd have to divide multiple times. But here we see that 6 and 12 both can be divided by the number 6. That is the largest number you can divide both by. So when you do that, on the top we have 6 divided by 6, which would give you 1. And then on the bottom we have 12 divided by 6, which would give 2. So our simplified answer is going to be 1 over 2. Here is another example. Now we have 5/8 times 2/15. Again, when you multiply fractions, you can multiply the tops together to get 5 times 2, and the bottom we'd have 8 times 15. 5 times 2 is 10, and then 8 times 15, If you cannot do that in your head, you can work that out. 8 times 5 is 40, carry the 4. And then 8 times 1 plus 4 would give 12. So 8 times 15 is 120. So now we can simplify by dividing the top and the bottom by 10. So notice they both ended at 0. So if I divide the top and the bottom by 10, 10 divided by 10 is 1. 120 divided by 10 is 12. So our solution is going to be 1 over 12. So essentially that has the effect of just dividing out the zeros. So we just cancel out the zeros, we're left with the 1 over 12. So we've worked with multiplying and simplifying. Now in this slide we're going to work with exponents. Now remember, an exponent means multiplication. So for example, if we had 2/5 raised to the second power, or in other words 2/5 squared, what this means is we have 2/5 multiplied by 2/5. So it's not times 2, but it's multiplied by itself. So again, when you multiply, you can multiply the numerators, 2 times 2, and then the denominators, 5 times 5. So that would give 4 on the top and 25 on the bottom. So our solution is 4 over 25. Now if you had, let's say, 2/3 to the third power. The third power, this exponent of 3, means you have 3 2/3 multiplied together. So we have 2/3 times 2/3 times 2/3. So again, it's not times 3, but it's 3 2/3 multiplied together. Now here we have 3 numbers being multiplied together, but it's still the same effect as with 2 fractions. So we just multiply all the numerators together. We would have 2 times 2 times 2 on the top, and then on the bottom we would have 3 times 3 times 3. So our solution would be 8 over 27. And on the final slide here, we're going to work with multiplying with more than 2 numbers, which we kind of already did with the cube on that last example. But here's another one where we have 1/2 times 2/3 times 3/4. And again, remember that if there's no multiplication sign in between, all we have is the parentheses around, this does still mean multiplication. This is another way to express multiplication, is with the parentheses. So we have to multiply these together. So you multiply the numerators. We have 1 times 2 times 3 on the top. And on the bottom, we have 2 times 3 times 4. So on the top, we would have 6, right? 1 times 2 times 3 is 6. And on the bottom, 2 times 3 times 4 is 24. So we have 6 over 24, which we can simplify by dividing the top and the bottom by 6. So if you divide top and bottom by 6, we would now have 1 on the top, and then 24 divided by 6 is 4 on the bottom. So that is as far as we can take it. 6 was the largest number that we can divide top and bottom by. So our solution is 1 over 4. Let's take a look here at one more example. We have 3/8 times 2/9 times 4/3. So again, when you multiply, you can multiply the tops together. So we have 3 times 2 times 4, which would give 24. So we have 24 on the top. And then on the bottom, we have 8 times 9 times 3. 8 times 9 is 72, times 3, we would have 216. All right, so this one has some larger numbers, at least on the bottom, and we can simplify. And ideally, we want to divide top and bottom by the greatest common factor. If you don't recognize that right off, what you could do is just divide multiple times. So like for me, I might see, okay, that they're both even numbers, so I can divide top and bottom by 2. That would give 12 over 108. Now again, we can divide, and actually here, if you know your multiplication table, 12 times 9 is 108. So what we could do is we can divide top and bottom by 12, because 12 divided by 12 works. That gives you 1. 108 divided by 12 gives you 9. So our final answer is 1 over 9. So if we could find the greatest common factor right away, we would find our GCF to be 24, and you could just divide at one time by 24 on the top and bottom. But if you don't recognize that, you could just keep dividing as far as you can until there's no other number you can divide the top and the bottom by. And here our final answer is 1 over 9. And that concludes our lesson for today. We will see you next time.